This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. Welcome to episode 142 of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedita. Today we're in for a treat. We have with us Adrian Jones. He is the owner of Landscapians in Pasco County. Adrian, how you doing today?
Doing well, Mike. Good to be here.
So Adrian is the owner of Landscapians. He's not the boss. The boss is his wife, Gabby, but the two of them own Landscapians together. They live in Land O'Lakes. They're one of our featured clients, sponsors in our 54 West Life magazine. We wanted to have them on the podcast today to talk a little bit about what they do in the community and get into a little bit about some of the things they have going on upcoming in the spring. So Adrian, in case you're not aware what the Good Neighbor Podcast is, it was started in 2020 as a way for business owners like you, entrepreneurs who have this great story, to be able to get your story out to the community, similar to what we do with the publications, but just in an audio format. And then since 2020, it's been now 4 years, there's Good Neighbor Podcasts all over the country. We have them in Denver, Atlanta, Virginia. They're all over. I'm the guy here who gets to do it in Tampa. And with that being said, so people can get familiar with your business, tell us a little bit about Landscapians.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, my wife, Gabby, she's on a work trip right now, though I shoot. I'd love to be here. But so we started last April. I had hired a local landscaper. It's actually the guy who dominates our community. He's got a lot of yards. And we hired him to come on board and help us out with the project. Wound up cutting a drip line about halfway through the first day of the project. And his team looked at each other. They said, we need to take lunch. And they completely bailed on us. So for the next week, I had to manage like thousands of material, plants, soil, all this stuff. Hired a local kid, and we just knocked the project out. During it, Gabby and I just fell in love with the work. Neighbors were walking by asking us if we could come to their yard next. And we're like, dude, we're trying to get through this yard. And then like a week later, after we finished our yard, I had finally recovered physically from all the work. And I saw a nice lady put up a sprinkler repair. She just needed help with her sprinkler. And I'm thinking, well, I just fixed this drip line and all this other stuff in my yard. I'll help her out. And so it turned into a huge project as we just walked the yard. And I started pointing out all these things that I had done and I recommend my neighbors to do. And she just looked at me and asked if I could do it all. And so we haven't stopped then. We've done over 100 projects in Bexley, and we're up to, I want to say 53 yards.
So this is basically just, because I know you both, you and Gabby, have careers. You do other stuff. You do like logistical type corporate jobs for making sure people run their business, make sure your business runs. This was, if for lack of a better term, an accident, a nice accident.
Oh yeah. Complete accident. Yep. Not intended. I will say this. I was laid off in 2019. At the time, I had conceived Landscapians, and the logo was a little different. The guy had 4 arms, and he was holding an edger and a blower and all this stuff. But I actually got an offer from MetLife shortly after I was laid off, and I was like, it's too risky. I'm okay. I love it. It's enjoyable, but the corporate path, I still had a lot to learn and a lot to soak in from that. And I'm glad I put it off because I work in project management. I've done about 5 industries since that layoff. So I move around quite a bit, building out the infrastructure and helping companies that recently merged. And so starting up the landscaping, it's just nonstop projects, processes, and getting things organized. So it's been a blast.
It's funny is even having that entrepreneurial spirit and maybe having a little bit of a love for the work itself, that security of being able to have that paycheck, it draws a lot of us. For me, I was thrown into it. The real estate market crashed in 08, 09, and we were treading water. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, you either have to move back to New York and take this job with a company that you knew it was like buying a ticket on the Titanic, knowing ahead of time it was going down. Or you could take a chance. And my ex-wife at the time had a good job with MetLife, and she loved it. She loved what she did. And I said, look, you keep that and we'll figure it out. And then that's how I just got into the marketing. So similar thing. It was a happy accident. And then I just turned out I was really good at being able to help people, find the right audience, get in front of the right people to help their brands grow. You told a little bit of your story. What did you always like doing the landscaping stuff? I mean, if you thought about starting it before, you had to have some sort of passion for it.
Yeah, so when I built in Bexley, this was my third home in Florida. So I had my first home was in Wesley Chapel. My second home was in New Tampa. I never hired a landscaper. I always YouTubed and just ironed out all the issues with the homes, which there were many. The first one was built in 2004. The second one was built in 94. So there was just constant issues.
Yeah.
I remember I Googled the Wi-Fi sprinkler in like 2015, and I called the irrigation guy to come to my house and help me install it. And he looked at me and he was like, why in the world would you get Wi-Fi on irrigation? And he just thought I was crazy. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. You don't even need to help me. And that started that. Now we offer Wi-Fi sprinklers to every client that comes on board with us.
Okay, so explain a little bit. What is Wi-Fi sprinklers?
Yeah, so it's really neat. You swap out what you have in your garage, the thing that schedules your irrigation to run, and we replace it. Usually we recommend the Rainbird. Comes Wi-Fi enabled. As soon as we hang it up and wire it up, we walk you through an app on your phone that allows you to control the sprinkler system. Because it's hooked up to Wi-Fi, it overrides the rain sensor that was previously installed and is heavily impacted by the humidity. So it reduces or increases your sprinkler system in error because of Florida is so humid. And instead the Wi-Fi goes off of the internet and what the weather actually reports, and it'll save you money when it actually rains. Even better, it allows my guys to control your sprinkler and landscaper access and not have you open the garage if we need to fix a problem with the system.
So, okay, so say, for example, I have Wi-Fi sprinkler and you're my guy and I'm noticing something's going on, something's not running right. Your team comes to the house. I don't have to be there. I don't have to let them in the garage. They could go in on the app, actually turn off a line if they need to, go in and check that line and do what they need to do without, you don't have to have client impact.
Yep, we don't even have to bother you. Our guys right now come to the yard every week and they're proactively looking for dead grass situations. And then we're turning the sprinklers on to see if that's the cause. We just let our client know, hey, we just swapped out a sprinkler. There's no charge for small irrigation repair within our weekly service. So it's kind of one of the ways that I built out our weekly service, being a resident here in Bexley. I know what I would want, what will make my life easy and bring me a lot of value, seeing that I'm not doing it myself. And so we try to build our weekly maintenance off of that exclusively.
Well, that really is the biggest thing. I mean, and folks, if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, the communities that we go to with our publications are, and it sounds I'm talking to somebody who lives in the community, so I kind of sound a little stuffy when I say this, but the residents these are upscale homes. They're gated communities. There's portions of all these communities that are gated. It is hard to connect to those people in that community because they're I don't want to say like in a fortress, but it's just hard to get in to make that connection with them so that they know who you are and you become trusted, and you have that in. So one of our publications is called 54 West Life. It goes to every single homeowner, every single family homeowner in Ballantrae, Bexley, and Starkey Ranch. Adrian lives in Bexley. He got this magazine for about a year, 10 months. And then we started talking about, how he could incorporate Landscapians into the publication. And it's been 3 or 4 months that you've been in the magazine now?
I think October was the first.
It's October, so about 6 months. So what has been the impact between being in the magazine as far as your community outreach, as far as your ability to connect to your neighbors? I mean, you already do anyway. You and your wife and the kids and the dogs, you guys are in the community. We get that. Yeah. But has there been an impact from being a part of the publication?
Yeah, definitely. A ton of people have spotted it out, and I can just feel the legitimacy it adds to it because honestly, we had to connect with you. We had to put some effort into, and invest in having ourselves in there. And we got to believe in our product at the end of the day to be in there. So I would say the legitimacy of it all, where when I come to the property and folks have seen me in the 54 West magazine, we're straight to the problem. There's no trying to suss me out or figure out if I'm legitimate or not. They go straight to the source. And it's really nice. It's kind of incalculable in a way because the amount of time I was having to spend before telling my accolades and let me show you a picture, Now folks are just straight to the problem. They know I have a solution. I couldn't have been in 54 West without one. And we actually had our first client from the magazine request to pay 6 months in advance. And we've had one client ask to pay in advance. And she's in Starkey, has never seen our work in person, unlike the Bexley people. But because she saw us in the magazine, she knew that we had to be legitimate.
You know, it's funny is I used to live in Corey Lake Isles. It's where my one magazine is in New Tampa, Cross Creek Living.
Yeah,
and we used to laugh as residents in Corey Lake. We used to joke and say there's the Corey Lake tax, because someone comes into Corey Lake and they see the guard at the gate and all this stuff. And they go, oh, this person definitely can afford to pay a little bit extra. But, in some cases, okay, it's true. But some cases it's not. But the thing is, the audience that you're reaching in the publication is an audience that is really looking for quality, is really looking for that service like you're talking about, and saying, well, hey, I'll pay a little bit more for a premium service. I'm a premium client. And if I run over a sprinkler head or there's a crack, I know that if Landscapians is coming out every week, they're going to find it and they're going to fix it. And it's just kind of like a worry-free. It's like an insurance policy. And people are willing to pay a little bit more for that.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I think the biggest thing, it's funny because what sets us apart from most landscaping companies is the communication. And sometimes we hold ourselves to a really high standard. A week ago, we were all sick in our house, and I'm just on my phone the whole time communicating to the clients. But it's really what sets us apart. And that's where it correlates and segues perfectly with 54 West, because we've communicated so well, we've gotten ourselves in this magazine. It's kind of a sign of the things that come from the client's perspective. Like, okay, these guys are probably going to be able to stay on top of this job and keep me posted, having gone through all this effort to be in this magazine this way. It's been cool to see the response to it.
It's funny is I've owned an ad agency since like 2010, right? It's like going on 14 years.
Okay.
And when I first started my ad agency, and I'll give you the example, was like ESPN. There used to be ESPN magazine. If you remember back, there was the big ESPN, the magazine. So it used to be you would buy an ad in ESPN, the magazine, and they would say to you, hey, you buy an ad in the magazine and we'll throw in, 100,000 impressions on our website. Great. It was kind of like a throw in to get you to buy the ad. And then what started to happen is people would say, oh, print is dead, and digital was taking over. And to an extent, digital then became the prominence. You were now buying for ESPN. You were spending a minimum spend of $25,000 to $50,000 a month to be all over ESPN.com. And then they would supplement it with some stuff in the magazine. And some of those bigger magazines went away just because of timing. You can't do news. You can't do news in print. News in print is difficult. You listen, you wake up in the morning, you know who won the Super Bowl. If you fell asleep early and you missed it, you knew Team Taylor won the Super Bowl. And it was, you have that news come out now. But what we do is a little bit of a more of a cachet thing where, hey, listen, it's about your family. Your beautiful family was on the cover of the magazine. We tell your family story. And if you're in that magazine, not only are you saying, hey, look, here's our ad to see us, because anybody can run an ad. But what every sponsor in our publications is saying is, look, the Joneses, we want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to make sure Mr. and Mrs. Jones, that we want to be a part of your community. Bexley is so important to us from a business standpoint. And for you, it is because you live there. But we want to be a part of it. And this is what we're willing to do, is to be in this magazine that has cachet. And the one thing I find is this most super interesting thing. And listen, especially with your story, from you and I talking, there's something called the marketing rule of 7. Okay, the marketing rule of 7 is not a Mike Sedita thing. I didn't make it up. You can Google it and look it up, anybody listening or watching. But it tells you that people don't get brand recognition until somebody sees it repetitive. And 7 is like the entry point. There's other studies that say it's 12 or 15 times. Right. You guys have a really cool ad. It's unique. It catches your eye. The name is different. You guys, the way you cross promote is excellent. Like the things you do. And what that tells me, and this is the entrepreneurial side of this podcast, is while you have a corporate gig and an entrepreneurial mind, you're marrying the two of those things. And it is fantastic to see you do it. And I'll tell you, I was talking about you today to somebody else, and I said, I have a client. This guy did a promotion where he went to his residence on social media and said, hey, listen, bring us a copy of your 54 West Life magazine, and we will give you a call to action, a promotion, whatever it was. It was 50. I don't want to say if I'm wrong, if it was 50% off your first month or whatever it was. I don't want to oversell your product. But that's the type of stuff that people want to see. You're a resident who is saying, look, we love you guys so much. We want to show our appreciation for being your neighbor and being your go-to people. And that stuff shows great entrepreneurial acumen, which always impresses me, because there's a lot of businesses out there that are in business, but they're not doing business, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, it sure does.
So when you engage, I mean, look, you're working a job, your wife is traveling, you have 2 children, you have animals, you have all these things going on. When you guys aren't doing all this stuff, what do you guys like to do for fun?
So I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Same. We've talked about this.
Yeah. And I've always tortured the girls with it, but recently they've just been, we have been very busy with the business, and the girls just know how much I love Star Wars. So it's been really special. They'll throw out and say, Dad, let's watch Star Wars, knowing that we're going to watch it. So lately we've been starting from episode 1. We're going through the whole thing clear from episode 1, and we've got a ways to go. Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. When you do that, do you sprinkle in Obi-Wan, and did you sprinkle in the Mandalorian, like in the timeline, or do you do all of it? It's full length features as well as the episodes.
We're going canon, all live action canon. So except for the cartoons, we're doing every episode of every show, every movie. Yeah, we're going all in. So
that's pretty gangster. And how old are your kids?
They're 10 and 9. Percy and Vicky, they're actually riding their bikes home right now. I'm looking for a little update because they wear the Apple Watch.
Yeah, you're tracking them. You got GPS on them. So, and they can make it through. Like, listen, I'm not a person who bashes episode 1, because I kind of liked episode 1. I understood going into it. It was establishing a story. Right. But they make it through Jar Jar Binks. There's no issues there.
They love all of it. They've really gotten into it now. And Gabby asks questions to understand. I'm so proud. I couldn't be more proud.
So, funny story is, when I was married to my ex-wife, I totally tried doing this. I'm like, listen, you got to watch Star Wars. It is it. It's like all this stuff that you like now. It said it, right? It was the jump. Right. It set it all up. So we made a deal. She said, I'll watch all the Star Wars. This is before a lot of the shorter canon, the episodes. I'll watch all 6 episodes before Force Awakens, and you watch all the Lord of the Rings. Oh. She made it through like a trooper, all 6. She made it through the original 3, and then and then the prequels. And I got to Lord of the Rings. I fell asleep 10 minutes in. It was so boring. She's like, you're snoring. I'm like, they're walking with a ring. They're just gonna drop it in some lava. That's gonna be the end. There's no. So. But dude, I'm totally into Star Wars. What about like Universal and stuff? I'm assuming you've been out there with the kids and done the whole Universal thing?
Yeah, we've done Disney, we've done Universal. It's funny right now with the business, they actually help quite a bit. They have full-on chores around the house, legitimate ways that they contribute to different things. They'll go to yards and pull weeds. And so I bring up stuff like that. I'm like, listen, you don't get to have a life where you get to do stuff like that at will if you're not willing to put in the work. And so explain the quality that we put into the work. When a client calls me or they need me to come and take the golf cart to fix something, they understand, Dad's trying to earn, what it is that we all want to do here.
So we could enjoy the things that we want to enjoy.
Yeah.
So let me ask
conversations early, but sometimes it goes over their head, but sometimes they're like, okay, we'll hang out later.
Well, dude, that's not one of those one and done conversations. That's seeing mom and dad work hard, seeing them put in the effort to take pride in what they do. Because you clearly, like, you just looking at your house alone and the landscape, it's manicured. I mean, that's the kind of care. I mean, it kind of leads me into my next question. If there's one thing you want people to know about hiring landscapians to be your architect for your yard, I mean, that's really what it is. It's not just coming and mowing your lawn and pulling your weeds. It's, hey, we can redo your sprinkler system. We could revamp your rock garden. We could put in shrubbery and trees and all that. But what's the one thing they need to know if they're going to hire you guys that separates you from everybody else?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mike. Honestly, lately I've just been kind of like breaking down the barriers of even landscaping. My guys are coming to me every day. They're like, we can clean this pool, we can clean this screen in lanai, we can pressure wash and seal this. They're just thirsty to help people. I've got my guys really invested. Each of them, I'm going to offer a franchise version of Landscapians. So everybody that you see working at your property is truly invested in what we're doing because they know they can ultimately get a piece of it. But shorter term within the community, I'm trying to build relationships with each client. I need everybody in here. You know where I live. So I need you guys referring us. I need you leaving 5-star reviews. And we're not going to stop until you're happy with the way that our relationship is set up. So some folks we don't talk to that often and they like it like that. Other people we chat every single week. We come to the yard. And so whatever it takes to be a trusted advisor, when you're building your pool, when you're putting in pavers, we're going to help you across the board. Your landscaping is responsible for about 25% of your market value. So some folks have $1 million homes in here. You're not going to get away with not investing a dime for 5 of those. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to have to help me, help you. And I'm looking out for you because it also helps my market value. And we really want to build solid relationships with our clients.
Well, and that's the one thing I like when I speak to you about some of the things you have going on. You take a very analytical approach to something that is artistic in its form, right? So like me, spending years in corporate finance, like numbers, I can't do creativity. I mean, I can have input towards it because I've been doing ads and seeing ads for years.
Right.
But when it comes to the specifics of having to actually do it, I couldn't draw an ad. I might be able to tell you, hey, that slogan works better than this one or that type of stuff. But your corporate background of project management and logistics and understanding how things work, that not only comes through in what you do, but it creates efficiencies. So like, whereas, a regular, like a generic, just a guy who does lawn cutting,
right?
He goes out and cuts the lawn, but he might not see the rock wall or the sprinkler or the French drain or the lanai screen or the pool cleaning. What I'm hearing you say is the grass is really the entry point for Landscapians. The Landscapians 2.0 and 3.0 is really going to be, multi-touch. Let us be your all-in-one for whatever you're doing, whether that's soft washing the house, soft washing the lanai, pool services in general, chlorine, cleaning, the whole works, right? That's kind of the long view.
Yeah, and Mike, this is really cool. From 54 West Magazine, I did a quote a couple of days ago. I came out, the husband and the wife were so excited. They said, "A celebrity's here. We can't believe you're really here." They just signed up, and it's our biggest project. We're pressure washing, we're sealing, we're installing landscape lighting, we're doing stone, we're doing mulch, we're doing landscape design, and it all started from the 54 West Magazine. They saw us before, but it actually wound up being the final hump that got them over the board, I think.
Man, we love hearing that. Listen, the thing that we do, whether it's with the podcast, whether it is with the magazines, whether it's what we do on social media, everything we're designed to do is bring neighbors together. Yeah. And I'll tell you a little bit of background. So like people may not necessarily know this, but 54 West actually is kind of a hybrid. There was a magazine that was going to be started called Odessa Living or Starkey Ranch Living. And then there was a magazine that was called The Neighbors of Ballantrae and Bexley. And when I came out that way a couple years ago, I said, you know what, like, neither one of these is really working by themselves. And I basically put the two of them together. And if you look at the geography, you take the Suncoast Highway and you have Starkey Ranch just on the west, and you have Ballantrae and Bexley just on the east. It's got a broader reach, and it's all designed specifically. Because the thing I love the most, honestly, Adrian, what you said in this is someone in Starkey Ranch saw you and said, hey, this is the guy we want to use because we saw him in the magazine, because that was ultimately the goal. Starkey Ranch could have had their own magazine. Bexley could have had their own magazine. They're beautiful neighborhoods, standalone. But if I could somehow bring neighbors together, which is Best Version Media, which is the company that's been around since 2007, that does everything with the magazines. Best Version Media's whole mission statement is bringing people together, bringing neighbors together. And I'll tell you, the cool part about it is what you just said about someone saying, hey, celebrities out here. listen, I sat in your living room. We talked about the magazine, and you could see it when I talk about it here.
Yeah.
I love my passion for the magazine is so great because you don't know how many times a month I run into somebody that says, hey, I read the article about the pet of the month, or hey, that recipe that you guys posted about the meatloaf or whatever it is, or hey, I know the family on the cover of that, man. That's the one I get a lot. Like, oh, we know Gabby and Adrian. Like, I get that. So like,
that's cool.
And that's the cool part about it. Like, listen, I'll tell you the biggest one. Norman, my English bulldog, is in 12,000 homes every single month, right? When I lived in Quarry Lake, when I did my first 3 months of my magazine, somebody was riding their bicycle, stopped, looked at Norman, did a double take, pulled over to the side and said, hey, Norman, and they waved to him. And I'm like, I don't know this person. Like, I'm from the Northeast. Like, I'm looking for the guy who's going to come behind me with a bat or whatever is going to be the deal. So I'm like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, Norman. And they're talking to Norman. Like, they're talking to him like
he's a
legend.
Wrote the magazine. He's a legend. Yeah.
So now, like, I do stuff in the community. I'm in the Rotary Club in Wesley Chapel. We do events. Norman comes with me. When I don't bring Norman to events, they're like, where's Norman? I'm like, oh, he's home. And they're like, they don't want to see me. They want to see him. So, like, I know it works because I know people are seeing it, and the consistency of it. That's what I love about it. I love hearing stories like you guys, like you've told me, like a lot of the residents I hear that talk about how much they love it, how much they love being a part of it. And man, we really do appreciate having you guys in there. Here's the big question I have for you as we wrap this up. If folks are listening to this, and their yard generally is not a lot of yards that look really bad in the neighborhood. Right. But if they have their yard and they're looking at it and they're staring at it, and the wife is looking at the husband going, Jesus, Jim, you need to get out there and clean this up. And he's like, I don't want to do it. I just want to hire landscapians. What's the best way for them to get to you?
Yeah, so www.landscapians.com. We're on Instagram at Landscapians, no apostrophe. We're also on Facebook, so we put our links all over the place. We have a good QR code where you scan it and it takes you to a request form. And I'll just say, me and Gabby, we're rewatching Game of Thrones, and you know what you hear throughout all of Game of Thrones is winter is coming. Yeah. And so if you're at home and you're looking at the yard and it looks kind of, the grass is coming. When the grass starts growing and you call us, it's going to be too late to get that project going. It's going to be, you're going to be wishing you started it 2 months ago. So get it knocked out, get on our calendar, and let's get to work.
So don't wait for the grass king to show up. You can't wait for the night king. You can't wait for the grass king. You got to call Landscapians today. Listen, we're going to include your IG, your social, all that stuff in this podcast when we post it. We're going to be on a bunch of podcast sites. We're going to be on our socials. You're going to be on your socials with it. We're going to be on YouTube with it. Guys, if you're listening to this or watching it, contact Adrian and Gabby. The number for Landscapians to get a hold of them directly, to get on their calendar. Do not wait. 813-943-1640. Adrian, thank you so much for being a good neighbor. Thank you for being with us on the Good Neighbor podcast, man. You have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Mike. See ya.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com, or call 813-922-3610.